So to get started, I kind of want to do a little thought experiment. I want you to imagine that you are in a foreign country. Actually, you've all seen a scene somewhat like this in the movies, where you're in a foreign country and you have a question about something, and so you approach, say you're in France and you don't speak a word of French, and you approach a French person and you ask your question, and then they say the French for I don't speak English, whatever that is. No habla.
That's good Spanish, honey.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But French.
Almost good Spanish.
So anyway, they tell you they don't speak French, and so you just ask your question louder, right? Say, excuse me, where's the bakery? And they go, whatever they say, and then you go, oh, you don't speak. Excuse me, where is the bakery? And they still don't understand, and so you get more and more insistent and louder and louder. That effort is doomed to fail. But we do that in our relationships all of the time. Love languages assumes that people hear things in different ways, they think about things in different ways, and that what seems like love to me may not seem like love to her. And yet, consistently in our relationships, we make that mistake where I choose to love her according to my own love language, and she chooses to love me according to her own love language, which reminds me of a story. This is a funny story that illustrates how we tend to try and love people in our own languages. So Christy and I just had our 31st wedding anniversary. Thank you very much. Oh, shucks. So we've been together a long time, but back when we were first married, I come home from work one day, and I walk in the apartment, and sitting there on our dining room table is a huge vase of flowers. And I go, Chrissy, are you home? And she comes bounding out of the back bedroom, and she goes, hello, honey, welcome home. And I went, yeah, who bought you flowers? And she goes, no one bought me flowers, honey. They're for you. And I went, okay. So if you never, ever, ever buy me flowers ever again, I would be okay with that. I would be, right? And so now Christy's primary language is not gifts given, right? But it still is a great example of, because she loves getting flowers, right? And if I had had a brain in my head at the time, which I didn't because I was 19, and who of us does at that age? But if I'd had a brain in my head at the time, I'd have gone, note to self, right? Christy wants me to buy her flowers, right? But that, of course, didn't occur to me until about, what, like a week ago? It's like...
Well, 31 years says you're doing something right. So
yeah.
Just to give you a little bit background about Dave and I, Dave is a licensed practical counselor. So you'll hear him
professional.
Professional counselor.
Professional.
See, there's too many letters in the world. So you're going to hear a lot from him on the relationship side, whether it's through marriage and whatnot. And as an administrator, school administrator, in my book, that's teacher. As a teacher, I'm going to talk to you a lot about from the educational side and working with your children. And sometimes your children are your little people, and sometimes they're your spouse. So we'll talk about that from both perspectives. So you have a counselor and you have an educator. So together, hopefully, you're going to find the information that you came here for. Relationships. It all comes down to working on your ability to build positive relationships, and when you do that, it will powerfully impact every area of your life. Here's the thing that's great about love languages. We talked about on the flyer, it talked about how to talk with your kids, right? But you also have to interact with other humans in this world, whether they're your coworkers or whether they are your family members, whether they're immediate family members in your house, whether they're your in-laws or outlaws, whatever you call them. But you have to interact with with people in general. And the better you can communicate with them or understand them, the better that you understand yourself, the better your relationships are going to be in general, and the more success and more calmness you're going to feel in your life if you work through this situation.
So basically what she's saying is that there literally isn't a single relationship in your life that you cannot improve by understanding and applying the information that we're going to share with you tonight. How many of you are at least familiar on some level with the love languages? Raise your hand. Okay, so
Professionals. Awesome.
Most of you are reasonably familiar. There's a huge difference, though, isn't there, between knowing information and doing information, right? And so what we hope to encourage you to do tonight, and maybe inspire you a little bit to do, is to take this thing that you already know, to sort of add to your toolbox a little bit, and to encourage you, beginning tonight, actually, with your children, to go home and begin applying this right away with your children, with your spouses, with the intimate relationships that are in your life. Okay, so
let's ask one more question.
Yeah.
How many of you have children that are 5 years or under? Bless your hearts. Oh, bless your hearts. I remember those days. All right. How many of you have children that are 6 to 12? 6 to 12. Oh, some of you keep raising your hands. I want to see how high you go. All right. So how many of you have 13 to 18? Wow, you guys are awesome and tired.
It's
right?
It's like at the dance when they bring everybody out on the dance floor and then they start eliminating people.
How many people?
See.
Yeah, okay. How many of you are parents of adult children? I have 3. I survived what you did. I made it. Okay. How many of you are grandparents? Yeah, it's a great place to be. Awesome. Okay. So I just like to know, so that as we're talking about the different age groups, because you do approach it differently depending on the age of the children. So this table right here, I recommend lots of notes for each age group because you're busy. So we'll see what we can do. Let's talk about the love bank.
So I want you to envision that when it comes, and I'm speaking here right now at this moment, I'm talking about your intimate adult relationship, but it also applies with your children as well. Imagine that in the life of every person you love, there exists a thing in that person called the first bank of love. And in everything that you do and everything that you say, you are either making a deposit into that love bank or you are making a withdrawal from that love bank. Now, just from whatever you happen to already know about banking, is it better in general to make deposits or is it better to make withdrawals? I'm not asking which is the most fun. I'm asking which is probably better. Deposits are better than withdrawals, right? And the same thing is true in your love bank, that the most important thing that is happening in your relationship, whether it's between you and your child, you and your boss, you and your intimate partner, is that you are making as many deposits into that love bank as possible. When we talk about the 5 love languages, what we're talking about is a way to make sure that you are topping out the positive balance in your love bank, all right? Because we're all going to make withdrawals. The withdrawals are the stupid things that we say, the hurtful things that we say and do. We're all going to make withdrawals. There's no way that we're going to be able to avoid that. We're people and we're imperfect. But we want to help you make sure that you're coming out on the positive end of that, right? Doing way more deposits than you are withdrawals.
Because we don't want to overdraw the account. That's when we get into a situation, whether it's with your child or your teen. Raising teens, it was, for me, we have 3 daughters, the most amazing women that have ever walked the planet, in my opinion. And I'm not telling a lie, it's truth. You know my girls, they're amazing. So it was a lot easier when they were little and you could keep an eye on them and corral them. And then something happens when girls turn about 9 or 10 and suddenly mom knows nothing and they butt heads. How many of you have tween girls? Moms, how many of you have tween girls? And you can't do anything right. Suddenly dad walks on water and you know nothing. I promise you, once they get to college, they come back. Your phone starts to ring, Mom, how do you do this? Suddenly you're brilliant again. I'm actually having dinner with one of my adult daughter's girls that she lives with because she needs a mom. So suddenly I know something, and she's sending her friends to me now. So at that one point when you're butting heads with your tweens, it's really important to have established a really solid foundation early so that when you start to have those head-butting moments, those are the withdrawals you have with your kids when you're butting heads. You want to have enough deposits that the love account is okay, you're good. And you know that if there's that headbutt with your daughter or with your son, you can butt heads with your sons too, right? You know that you're okay. They know they're loved. You know they love you. You've built that solid foundation so that you don't have to worry that when you start to butt heads that it's all going to fall apart because you've already put that enough deposits in and built that good foundation. Can you switch slides for me, please? So that's the love bank. So the love languages. The love languages are from Dr. Gary Chapman. This is nothing that, of course, we've written. Boy, if we had, we'd be rich and retired. But this is...
we would not be here with you all.
Well, I don't know.
That's for sure.
I don't know. Davison's my hometown. I'd have been here investing in my community anyway. So, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And there are a multitude of editions in addition to the original. So this is the original. There's also the 5 Love Languages of Children, the 5 Love Languages of Men, the 5 Love Languages for Teenagers, the 5 Love Languages, blah, 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 and on and on and on. So, but this is the book it's based on. I've taught lots of different small groups using this book. I have little notes and stars and smileys throughout because I've revisited this book multiple times. It never ceases to amaze me. As with any good book, you read it once, you get something out of it. You read it a second time, you get something totally different. This, to me, is one of those books that's worth investing in and learning about and reading because, to me, you'll use it over and over. But it talks about the key important thing to remember about, yes?
On the books, because I've read that one, is there a significant difference when you're looking at the 5 Love Languages for Children, for teens? Or is it really, if you've read that one and you really maybe go back and read it or think about it, can you really just apply from that? Or are there exceptional ideas that come out of those other books?
Here's my opinion. This is my opinion. I really like the difference between the books. This really is about in relationships between you and a partner, you and a spouse, you and someone you're dating. That's really the approach that this takes. I really do appreciate the 5 Love Languages of Children because it does talk to you about how to really understand children differently. Children are developing. Now, I tend to believe that, you know, my granddaughter is 10 months. I think she's going to be physical touch because she's always touching my face. When she meets someone, she puts her hand on their face. She touches people a lot. So I think that's what, and she's only 10 months old, but they develop and they grow. And so I do think that the take that he puts when you're looking at how to talk about the love languages or how to express that to your children, I do think it's valuable to read it, as is the teenager version, because teens are a whole nother world. We were youth pastors for a long time, so teens, I love them, but they live in a different world. And I think that his approach to teens and how to talk to teens and how to live and exist in a happy place with teens, I think it's very well written. So I do think it's worthwhile, and I know most of the libraries carry them, so you could always check them out. And also, I do have in the slides later on, if you go to the internet and you put the 5 Love Languages, his website is up with resources and extra information about the books and different things as well. And I think you can get a lot of information just from his website as well. Yeah, great question. Thank you so much for asking it. So we're talking about every person has a primary language of love. So Dave was talking about gifts is not mine. It's not one of my top ones. My top is probably acts of service. I really appreciate it when people do things to help me out. I love that. When I come home after work and I see that he's done the dishes, that just is ladies, are you with me? Oh, there's just something about coming home to a sink of no dishes. I love that.
And here's the thing, fellas. This is a freebie. Don't wait till she asks you.
Yes.
Because she doesn't want you to do the dishes. She wants you to want to do the dishes.
He's speaking the truth, right? So for me, my primary love language would be acts of service. So that's my preferred way. I like it when people do things for me. Doesn't matter if it's Dave, my daughters, friends, whatever. Do I appreciate love in other ways? Of course I do. Sending me flowers, he's figured it out. That's a good thing. But that's not my first love language. So you want to know the people that are in your life, their primary love language, and maybe a secondary, you know, what's there. And then by understanding that love language, you are better able to communicate that you care for them, love them. When I sent Dave flowers, and he asked me if he could share that story, and I said yes. We were young, we were early 20s, and I had read in some magazine that men love getting flowers from their spouse. Well, luckily, I didn't send it to his work. How embarrassing for him. I didn't know better. I was just trying to do something nice, right? Obviously, I had a lot to learn as a young bride, that wasn't going to be something that would fill the love bank for him. That wasn't going to get it. So we want to help you understand that so we can make sure that you don't make the mistake that I did.
Let's linger on this last point just real quick. The bottom sentence there, by understanding the love language of those we love, we can better communicate our love to them. Here's what I want you to really be aware of. You don't choose your love language. And your spouse did not choose their love language. And so if your love language and your spouse's love language are different, and you think that your spouse's love language is a bummer, like I get it, right? Like I don't like to do a lot of the stuff that she likes having done. I don't. But the more that I've gotten in touch with what love languages are about, right, the more that I'm able to say, look, it's not about just doing these tasks. It's about doing something that means something to her that she will appreciate, and she's happier. And you know what happens when she's happier? Right? What happens when your partner is happier? Probably you are happier as well, right? It's a better way to go. So if that's the case, sort of realize that it's not your partner's fault. Okay? If your partner's a gifts person and you're like, oh, I'm terrible at getting gifts, you're just going to have to learn is all. Right? There's nothing they can do. And the other thing we wanted to emphasize on this is that these are eternal. These preferences, they are bottomless pits. No, they are. They are. Like if you're a words of affirmation person, we're going to go through all these in a minute. But if you're a words of affirmation person and you marry someone who says, hey, it's our wedding day, I'm telling you I love you. If it changes, I'll let you know. Right? I mean, I have couples in my office where a lot of times the men actually say something kind of like that. I don't know why she thinks I don't love her. Like, I tell her all the time. And she's like, you've told me like 3 times in 20 years. Well, if I didn't love you, I would tell you. Right? So we have to realize, like, these are insatiable. You can't affirm a person too much who is word spoken. You can't do little acts of service too much for an acts of service person, and so on and so on. Question?
That's what he was just talking about a little bit, is that really it's how you're wired. It's how you're wired. Like my granddaughter, I think she's going to be physical touch because of the touch. And I would say I've been an acts of service person my whole life. I appreciate that. And so things change?
It may, but
they
probably
can,
not.
But probably not. That's why it's really nice to figure it out early with your kids. If you can, it's nice to figure it out early in your marriage. It gets better. Yeah.
Is it just one? Each person has one?
Well, you can have more than one. And you do the survey. We're going to talk about how the survey works. You can have, usually there's one that really sticks out. With your children, the really little ones, they don't really know how to answer some of the questions. So they might have, all of them love gifts. Let's all know that. Did anybody not understand that about their child? Yeah. But there are children that gifts is their primary, but their secondary might be quality time spent with you, or words of affirmation. So you can have more than one. And I think what I like knowing, is, especially if it's your spouse, know the primary, but know a couple really good ones underneath, so you can just keep, you want to win. You want to out-love your person. That's what I always say. You know, outlove them. You don't just outlove who you're with. Just outlove them. And your children too. Know their primary love language and try to relate to them in that way. And we're going to talk about what that looks like. Talk about the languages, Dave.
All right, so let's just kind of take these one at a time. I just want to review them with you quickly, maybe give you a couple of examples. When my wife ran the notes off, she ran them on both sides of the page, and for some reason I find this enormously confusing. I can't figure out where I'm supposed to go in my notes. So
all right, well, if you watch the screen, you'll be good.
If I get lost, bear with me.
You're good.
So
you're going to talk about the 5 right now, all 5.
yes, words of affirmation, right? Quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. So before I move into talking just briefly about each of these 5, just want you to spend just a second kind of thinking about what one do you suspect you might be? Like, what do you think your primary might be? What do you think your adult, intimate partner might be? Is that a good name? Intimate partner?
Partner's fine.
Partner. Intimacy's okay.
Yeah, it is. That's all right.
Okay, so your adult partner, think about what they might be, and then kind of work your kids in there. Just based on what you know of your kids, kind of make a guess where you think they might fall. And here's the thing to remember as we move into the specific descriptions. I want you to keep this in mind. It is easier to build healthy children than it is to fix broken ones. It is easier to build healthy children than it is to fix broken ones. Now, that doesn't mean that all of our kids aren't going to end up in therapy one of these days, right? The only question is what the topic is going to be, right? But we want to do the best we can to launch them in the healthiest way possible, okay? And that's what this will help us do. So let's take a look at words of affirmation. I'm sitting in a session one night with this couple, and she's talking about, she's saying to him, you know, I just need you to be more thoughtful. I just need you to express how you feel more. I need to like know who you are and how you feel. And he responds, don't matter, ain't nothing I say gonna meet your expectations anyway. And I said to her, wow, do you think that's true? Do you think your expectations are that high? Well, I don't think so. And I said, okay, so you guys imagine this. Imagine that you're both sitting in a family restaurant, and out of the blue, he reaches over across the table, and he just grabs your napkin, he pulls it over to himself, and he just writes a little thing on it. I'm so glad you're my wife. Puts a little heart in it at the bottom, just pushes it back over across the table, and she literally starts crying, right? Oh, that would be so sweet. That would be so special if he did that. And I looked at him and I went, wow, dude, what high standards. How can you even, right? Frequently, men think women have these incredibly, impossibly high standards, and frequently it's because men think, I can't do anything good enough for her, because they do care about her, and they think those little things, I want to do something amazing. And so instead of doing a million little things, they want to do 4 or 5 big, huge things, right? And that's where we end up dropping the ball a lot of times. All right, the next one.
Wait. So words of affirmation. When we talk about words of affirmation, how do you show your love to a child that identifies with words of affirmation? Words of affirmation, they need to be told. They need to hear from you. You need to tell them that you appreciate them. You need to tell them that they're good at things. Wow, nobody empties that dishes of sink, the dirty dishes in the sink like you do, dear. Or, man, you really cleared the snow out of the driveway. Great, thank you so much. Words of appreciation is another way that I think of it. It's words of affirmation. So what about children? You cannot tell your children you love them too much. I have 419 children in K through 4 at my school, and I tell them I love them all the time. When I have a student that I am working on for a behavior reason, I'll say, I want you to know I love you too much to let you act that way. I learned that from Dave. He used to say that to our daughters. I love you too much to let you make a bad choice like that. So we're not going to do that anymore. This is the last time you ever do that. Do you understand, Mrs. Flowers? They do. They do. And I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to yell. I certainly do not put my hands on them. You know, we don't do that. But I've told them two things. I've told them, one, I love them, I care about them as people, and two, we're not going to do that anymore. But I've said it in a kind and loving way that they get the point, right? The other thing you can do is, for a child with words of affirmation, is write them a little note. It doesn't have to be a lot. My middle daughter graduated from college, Bowling Green, in Ohio, and she moved to Columbus, to Ohio State, and when she moved, I was helping her pack up her room, and I came across this shoebox. She, you know, Mom, help me pack up my room. I don't know what to take. So I opened up this shoebox, and it was filled with every note that I'd put in her cold lunch when she was attending Hill. She had saved every one. They were little tiny notes. Mom loves you. You are going to do great on your spelling test today. Silly little things. Oh my goodness, you did such a great job at soccer practice last night. Have fun with your friends. She had saved every one. And when I packed her up to move her, I said, honey, do you want to get rid of these now? They're a little old. Some of them had peanut butter and jelly on them still for lunch. And she goes, are you kidding, Mom? I will never let go of those. And how simple. I'm talking just a Post-it note shoved in the lunch. That's how easy words of affirmation can be communicated to a child. Something I did here's something for an adult. For my husband's 40th birthday, I communicated with a bunch of our friends. I said, hey, Dave's turning 40. Can you write a letter to him and tell him what he means to you? And how you appreciate him. Send a picture if you'd like. When Mr. Liskey retired, I had the staff do that as well. And I'll tell you what, when I gave that book, Dave is a words of affirmation person. I could not have thought of a better gift for him, because when he got that book out, he couldn't read it. It had to be put aside. And then when he was alone and he had a moment, he would read bits of it at a time. And now he has it forever. And that is a treasure. You know, when you think about someone who really needs those words of affirmation, they've got it then forever. Does that make sense? Simple. Keep it simple. Doesn't cost anything. A Post-it note to write, I'm so proud of you, honey. Do good on your spelling test. You did a great job at the soccer game. Your kids, if they're words of affirmation, they eat that up.
And she has learned over the years that when she buys me a card for something like our anniversary or Valentine's Day, I do expect a novel at the end. I don't want to just see a signature.
That's right.
Those are not your words
That's right.
in the card.
That's right.
They're not yours. They don't matter.
I've learned.
Right? So she has to write minimum 5,000 words.
There you go.
Afterwards, if it's going to be meaningful. So
Tell us about quality time, Dave.
The next one is quality time. So, the other important thing here is that these are not like, oh, the women are usually quality time people and the men are usually physical touch people or whatever. It doesn't work that way at all. And that's a really hugely important thing, right? It's important for a woman to understand if she has a man who's a words of affirmation person, or if she has a man who's an acts of service person. It's important for a man to understand what makes his wife tick, right? So that why? So that we can love each other in ways the other person experiences as loving. So quality time, right? This is just what it sounds like. It is making those little, most of the time, little efforts to invest moments with the person. And here we must say that when it comes to children, for sure, and I think also with adults, folks, it's not just quality time. Quantity matters as well, and that's especially true with children, right? Quantity does matter. Now, we all have limited amounts of time. It doesn't need to be a guilt thing. It's just important to know that we don't want to say, hey, you know, I spent a good 20 minutes with them getting them ready for bed or whatever, so that's good for it. It's like, well, no, it'd be better if you had a couple hours. That would be better. We don't always have the time that we would like, all right? So quality time, making the effort to be with. And let me just give you a quick application in the adult world, and she'll show you some things in the kid world. A person who's not a quality time person, married to a partner who is a quality time person, can't understand why their partner wants them to just sit and watch television with them. So what big deal? We're just sitting. We're not even talking to each other. For quality time people, it's not necessarily the conversation. It is your physical presence close to them. That's what matters. And you know why that is important? Because one day, God forbid, when you're gone, that's what they're going to miss too. It's just your physical presence. And they delight in your proximity to them.
So for children, when you think about that, part of it, for adults and children, is making eye contact. If you are in a conversation with them, they expect that you are looking at them. Put your fork down if you're at the table. Look at them while they're telling you the story that happened at work today. They want you to make eye contact. They want you to look at them. They want to know that 100% of your attention is on them. And again, we're busy people, but we've also gotten sort of trained by the technology in our hand. Put your phone away for your kids.
And for
if they have one,
and for your
take
other,
it away
your
from them. No, and
yes.
your spouse, that's right. But turn it off, turn the phone off. At least have some time that you don't have to have something attached to you, especially if your child is a quality time person. They need to know they've got 100% of your attention. Now, I had 3 kids. How do you give quality time to all 3 kids? You have a date. You set a date. My Dave was very, very good about setting dates with his daughters. I was a stay-at-home mom while they were home being little for most of the time, and Dave was working, but he would have dates with individual daughters. He would take them to dinner, or he'd ask them, what do you want to do? It's you and Dad time. What do you want to do? And he would take them out, and they had his attention.
Overnighters. Remember, we just sleep on that sectional couch in the basement?
Oh, yeah.
You're just an overnighter.
Yep. So maybe we had a little sectional, so Brittany might be there, I might be there, or Dave would take them on a dinner out or to a movie or whatever, bowling, whatever they wanted. Just time where it's just them and they don't have to share you. Does that make sense? And it doesn't have to be expensive. You know, it could be, let's watch, I want to watch a movie with you, Mom. Okay, you pick, I'll pop the popcorn. Everybody else has to stay in another room. It's just us. Does that make sense? Just them. And one thing that we did too with quality time in our family, we tried to make sure that every day, once a day, we had a meal together at the dining room table. That's pretty rare anymore. It's pretty rare anymore. When we had babysitters come over, I remember we would have the teens over to our house, and we'd all sit around the table, and some of them didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to sit at a table. And what we found is once our girls got to school, we'd say, what'd you do at school today? How was school? You guys ever get, oh, nothing. What happened at school today? Nothing. Did you have a great day? Yeah, it's fine. Teenagers, it's just a grunt. Right? Right? I know. I had teenagers. I gotcha. What we did is we did highs and lows at dinner. Every dinner we did highs and lows. So what is highs and lows? Highs and lows, someone would be the first person to go, and they would have to say the high from their day and the low from their day. And then it never failed. I mean, even when they were itty bitty, we'd hear things that we never thought we'd hear about. You know, it really hurt my feelings today. You know, I wanted to sit by Sally, and she sat by Francis, and then and it just really hurt my feelings, Mom. And suddenly there was a conversation to have, and it was at a higher level than we would have gotten if I just said, "How was school today?" Right? And then they'd say, they'd say a high, they'd say a low, and then they got to pick the next family member to go, and Mom and Dad had to share too. And in doing that, then Mom and Dad became transparent to the kids that they knew that Mom and Dad had bad times during the day sometimes too, and that made us real, and that helped them realize that that's part of life. And we would talk through it as a family. So that quality time, sometimes just sitting together and having a meal together, it goes a long way. You're gonna feed them anyway, I hope, right? You feed your kids anyway? Okay, so do it together, sit at a table, try it. It doesn't have to be China. You know, I don't serve with China. Pull out a paper plate, I don't care what it is, but sit together, turn off the TV, no phones, laptops, tablets, anything with technology at the table, and just be present together. That's one of the best quality time things you can do.
And one of the sweetest moments with that is occasionally we'd be doing highs and lows, and one of our girls would go, okay, my high is right now.
That is the best. Yeah, I know. Oh, okay, keep going, Dave, keep going. Next one, what's next? Let's talk about receiving gifts.
Receiving gifts. You want to tell them about your nickname?
Okay. In my early 20s, I worked at Hudson's. How many of you remember Hudson's? You can date yourself, thank you. I worked at the Delicatessen upstairs and in La Cookie at the bakery. And one day when I was in the Delicatessen at Hudson's, which is, those of you that are too young to know, Macy's is in that building now. Does that help you put a place to it? Okay, okay. I was working with a friend of mine, and we were talking about, if you were a food, what would you be? And I said, I don't know, maybe a strawberry or something. He said, no, you're a cupcake. I said, a cupcake? He said, short and sweet. It's like, well, at least he wasn't saying round and, you know, short and, I don't know. So he said I was a cupcake. So that's the story. Okay, go ahead, Dave.
So I have called her Cupcake for 30 years. This is a cute little squishy cupcake that we were on our way out of town. We were going to visit our daughter in Columbus, and we stopped to run into Walgreens to pick up a couple things. And I found this in a little bin that had a bunch of little like foamy foods in it. So there was like a hot dog and a hamburger, and I thought, I wonder if there's a cupcake in there. And sure enough, and it really set me back. Again, those high expectations women have, it set me back like $3.
Yeah.
And it was all wrapped in plastic. And we get out there, you know, I go back out, and Christy's waiting in the car, and I give her her Diet Coke or whatever I went in there for. And then I go, oh yeah, here. And I kind of toss it over to her, and she looks at it, and she gets all teary, and she goes, that's one of the sweetest things you've ever done. This is like 2 summers ago, and I honestly thought, I was like, I can't believe how low the bar is. Seriously. It's like,
doesn't take much, right, girls? Right? All right.
it's exactly
Make an effort.
opposite of
Doesn't
what
take
I
much.
always thought. So let's pass this around. You have to squeeze the cupcake.
You don't have to.
Squeeze
it's
the
okay,
cupcake.
Jen. You can keep it. Yeah. No, I need to keep it because it's a treasure. But you know.
Okay. So the idea here, right, with receiving gifts, and it's kind of something I alluded to earlier. I think this is a generalization. I think women will do this better inherently for their husbands who are gifts people, because men tend to have the problem, we want to do huge things, because we really can't believe that you want those little, like seriously, we're just like, what? So for years, I had this fantasy, and it was brilliant. If I could have ever done it, it would have been amazing. The fantasy was, I'm going to save up a bunch of money, and just completely out of the blue, I'm going to grab Christy after work one day, I'm going to put her on a plane, I'm going to fly her to Paris, we're going to have dinner, and then we're flying home. Dinner under the Eiffel Tower, and then we're flying home.
I'd go.
That was about 25 years ago that idea occurred to me, and we've never been to Europe or anywhere close to that. So, and I think to myself, all the opportunities, while I was planning this grand thing that was going to blow her mind for the rest of our marriage, all those opportunities I missed to buy little foamy cupcakes, to do the little things that really matter, that keep your love account on the positive side day to day. And I missed a lot of those opportunities because of these grandiose ideas.
Well, you know, it's okay.
Thanks.
You've done a good job.
It's right there.
It's right there. That's right. Well, and when you think about gifts for children, you know, kids are easy. They love everything, right? But we don't want to just give them things just there's so much. Most kids have too much, right? And we don't want to just give. So what does this mean for your child? One idea that I saw that I absolutely loved is a parent heard this song on the radio that reminded them of their child, and they made sure they played it for their child and said, I'm giving this as a gift to you because every time I hear this song, it makes me think of you. So this is your song now. I love that. That's free. That's free. And, I think about my daughters. They have certain songs that they play that remind them of mom and dad. Because, my one daughter and I, we like to sing and dance in the car really loud. And so there's certain songs that she hears that's her song with me. So that's an easy, free gift you can give your child. You can, if you have kiddos that like to be outdoors, you could find a rock and write their name on it or write a word on it or mom loves you or something like that. It doesn't have to be big things, and it doesn't have to be all the time. Usually if you've got a gift kiddo, I would recommend also finding their secondary and trying to invest in that way in them as well, because again, you don't want to just pour gifts and gifts and gifts, but it doesn't have to be big. I mean, this cracked me up because this is so not Dave. And so when he gave this to me, that's why it was so meaningful to me, not because I need squishy cupcakes, although I have saved it on a special shelf in my house and I will always have it. But it was just out of his toolbox. It's not his area, and for him to do that, it was so thoughtful because he thought of me. That's all it meant. He thought of me being his cupcake, and that was that. So small little things. It can be stickers. It can be a note. A note can also be a gift for a kiddo that's a gifts person. It doesn't take a lot.
Acts of service is next, and the main thing I want to say here is that for both men and women, working and paying the bills doesn't count.
That's right.
Right? I've sat through way too many appointments in my office where one or the other, it's usually the guy, not always, but usually the guy, well, I go to work every day, don't I? I keep our bills paid, don't I? And I'm like, dude, she's on to you, man. She knows you'd be doing that whether you married her or not. You'd be working and paying your bills, right? So we don't get to count that, right? So acts of service are things that we choose to do over and above the normal obligations. Did I switch something? Yeah. Over and above our normal kind of obligations. Whatever the arrangement is that you've worked out with your significant other, right? You do certain things and they do certain things, and that's kind of part of your deal, which is fine. Keep doing. I don't recommend that you not do the stuff you committed to do, right? And it's important for you to show appreciation for your partner for continuing to do just those things that are there, that if they've taken on as their responsibility. But that's not what this is, okay? These are specific things that you're doing because you are considering the other person. So I have an activity that I encourage partners to do, couples to do. It's called daily dialogue. And the idea is it's a 5-minute conversation once a day, where each person asks and answers 3 questions. Number 1, what did you most appreciate about our relationship today? Number 2, what did you least appreciate about our relationship today? But question number 3, how can I help you in the next 24 hours? What is that thing that is on your mind, that is bogging you down, that is troubling you, that you can't stop thinking about? Where can I have your back tomorrow, right? That's huge. And isn't it so weird that we don't think to ask our partner those questions a lot of the time? So I just love the idea of being really intentional. How can I serve you?
And for your children, sometimes they don't know the answer to that. They don't know what you can do to serve them. However, your goal is when you're trying to show love to someone who's an acts of service person, you want to ease their burden. You want to think about what can you do to make life a little bit better for them, to take something off their plate. All of us are all busy, and our kids are so busy. If they're in multiple sports or church activities, they're busy. So what can you do to help them? So when you talk about acts of service, maybe I hope that you've taught your children to have chores at home because they need to learn responsibility and how to take care of things. So maybe on occasion you'll help them and do one of their chores. Acts of service might be that you help them clean and organize their room. You work with them, you partner with them. So then you're also doing quality time, and it's an act of service. See how you can put them together and get bonus points? Okay. Another thing about acts of service children, and this is a very important thing. This is like double bonus for kiddos that are acts of service. Some of my I'm going to say frequent flyers that I spend a lot of time with in the office. My frequent flyers are oftentimes, I've noticed, they are children that are acts of service children. Every student in my school, I have the love language for all 419 of my kids. We do our whole building, so the teachers will know, so that helps them in developing their relationship with their students. And then I know, my school counselor knows, so that when we're working with kiddos, I can look that up and say, you know what, this is a quality time. We're gonna go walk the track together. And then I'll grab them and we'll go take a walk around the track and we'll just hang out. What'd you do today? What's going on at school? How was recess? All I gotta do is say, how was recess? And suddenly it comes up what happened at recess. I don't have to say, what did you do? Say, how was recess today? And suddenly, because I'm giving them my time and attention, they spill. And it becomes relational. It's all about relationships. So when you talk about your acts of service kiddos, something that they like to do is to do jobs. They want you to give them responsibility. They want to do jobs. My frequent flyers, my acts of service kiddos, they love to help the custodian. They love to deliver notes from the office. They love it if Mrs. Flowers is taking a box of books from the office down to the library. They want to help carry those books. And that's their way of showing love to Mrs. Flowers. That's their way of helping out the secretaries. That's their way of showing the custodian that they're a big and responsible person. It makes them feel special. So give them a job. If they're an acts of service kiddo, say, oh, I just appreciate it so much that you were helping me shovel the sidewalk. You did a great job at that. Boom, that just blows up. That's a huge love bank deposit right there. So if they're an acts of service kiddo or spouse, if you give them specific jobs that would make you happy, they'll do that for you. Let them know, communicate it. And for your kiddos, it's helping them out with chores, or giving them the opportunity to show their love for others by giving them jobs to do. Because sometimes they just don't know what to do and how to show that, and it really does help them out. So physical touch.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we want to hurry through a few of these. We have some time to recover. So, this is simply putting your arm around, right? Or hugging, holding hands, an occasional pat on the back, or maybe a back rub. It's something, again, it's just another way of conveying presence and connection.
For your children, especially, if you've got toddlers, you can't hold them enough, right? They're always climbing on you. When you get them in elementary school, they're still huggers. They might want to hold your hand a lot. You need to be careful when they hit the tween stage, when they hit 9 years of age. This is a very hard time for dads of daughters and sometimes moms of sons, because dads sometimes start to feel weird around their daughters when they start to mature. It's just what happens in life. But your daughters still need to know that you love them, and if you always hugged them, you better keep giving them their hugs. And if you always gave them a kiss on the cheek before they went to bed, you at least got to try to give them a kiss on the cheek before they go to bed. Because if dads stop showing that kind of affection that they've always given their daughters, then that's going to make their daughters feel uncomfortable, and they will seek that out from the boys that you're trying to keep them away from so desperately, right? So dads, you just have to be cautious and read it. Moms, you too. Moms, we are guilty of embarrassing our boys. You always gave him a kiss as you're walking him up to the door, and so you're walking up to high school. Oh, Johnny, I love you. Mom. Be cautious. Don't embarrass them, because if you know that they're a physical touch kid and you go to give them a kiss and a hug like you always did, but they're 13 now and that cute girl's standing over there and they're watching that, and you've embarrassed them, you've kind of done a withdrawal as fast as you've made the deposit. So have that conversation in a safe place at home. Does it bother you now when I give you a hug and a kiss? Because if it does, I won't. And then make up a hand signal, or like that means I love you, or bump shoulders or something. A secret sign. I got you. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to embarrass them. If you embarrass them, then you're going to be taking away from the benefit of what you're trying to do. So, but Physical touch is a very, very important thing. Even through the teen years, you just have to use those appropriate boundaries and find out what they're comfortable with. But don't cut them off, because then you're going to have a negative impact.
So determining a person's love language. When it comes to this, people are obviously individual, very different. So some people are going to do the love language assessment, and they're going to have one of the 5 that is like a 20, and then the rest are going to be 2s or something. Like, it's going to be really obvious. Other people are going to have maybe a couple that are higher, and then the other 3 are lower. And some people are going to have like all 7s. You know what I mean? Like, but if that's you, don't worry about it. By the way, if that's your partner, you're in the zone, right? This is awesome for you. Because it means that pretty much whatever you do, they're probably going to be equally open to. So that's all right, right? This is not a way of pigeonholing anybody. It's just to get us thinking about something that's really important, a way that we can prioritize our partner and our children.
So there's different surveys for different ages and different situations. And at the bottom I said, read all about it. I'm a former literacy specialist, so I always promote books. So you can read. And there's so many resources. I mentioned earlier, you can go online. You can also read the books, but read about it. You cannot go wrong when you are expanding your knowledge about something like this.
The more you know.
The more you know, the more you grow. Okay, children 8 years and younger. This is what's tricky. I want to first talk about birth to age 5. You do them all. Do them all for those babies. My kindergartners coming in, those little ones from birth to age 5, they need all of it. They need quality time. They need you. They need physical touch. They need words. They need that you're already taking care of gifts, you're already feeding them, doing all those things. But the one thing especially I have to say this, my administrator friends will know, talk with your babies. I don't care if it's babble. My granddaughter started out with a high shrill scream before she got sounds. That was fun. But that was her talk. And Grandma would say, oh, honey, I know, tell me more. And it didn't mean anything, but I was listening and I was talking. Why do we want to talk? Because all reading begins with oral language, with talking. Them watching your face and how your mouth moves, and you talking back to them, and them babbling, and you saying, oh, you're so smart, read that book to me again. My 10-month-old is reading me books. She opens the books and turns, ba, 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 turn the page, ba, ba, oh, honey, you're such a good reader. That is the start of reading. That is the start of reading. So birth to age 5, all of them. Do all of them, focus on all of them. You cannot overlove children. You cannot overlove children, especially birth to age 5. 5 to 8 years, Gary Chapman does not have a profile specifically for children that are 5 to 8 years of age. However, it can be done. You can use the 9 to 12. It's what we use for my students that are kindergartners through 4th grade, because I want a survey. I can't personally interview and talk to 419 children, so we do use the survey. We talk them through it. So what he recommends is that you gain understanding of your children by asking them questions such as, over the course of a week, maybe once a day, you say, you know what, if Mommy was going to show you how much she loved you, how would you want me to do that? What makes you feel loved by Mommy? Or what does it do? What does Daddy do? What does Daddy do that makes you feel loved? You can ask that kind of question. I also recommend, we use the survey for 8 to 12-year-old students with our little ones, our K through 4 at my building, and I do get pretty decent answers. But know that usually you're going to get gifts for your littlest ones. Your 5, 6, 7-year-olds, they usually come out gifts because they all want presents always. But you can try it. Can I have the next slide? 9 to 12. And this is from the website. I also have them for you here. Every one of these surveys, we have a whole stack of them on this table over here. I just didn't give it to you at the beginning because I wanted you to listen instead of taking the survey. So this is the one for 5 to 12-year-olds. And there's 2 questions. They call it the Love Languages Mystery Game. They recommend that you read the directions to them, and sometimes you might need to read the questions to them. They'll have 2 choices. Your choices are, I've got a special birthday present for you, or I'll help you with that project. Which one sounds better? Which one would you want to hear from mom or dad? And then they pick that one. And then it gives you, there's a letter next to each one. It's either A, B, C, D, or E. And then you count up how many A's did they get, how many B's did they get, how many C's did they get, and on the back you write that number, and that tells you their primary love language. Easy as pie. That one is for 9 to 12. Remember to keep it light. Don't dwell on it too long. Make it family fun. We're all going to do this. Maybe you're having dinner together at the table with your paper plates because you're having your conversation. And before dessert, we're going to do this. And after we're done, we'll have ice cream. Just a thought. Okay, so then that's 9 to 12. Oh, the tween years are tricky. This 9 to 12, this is that funny age where their brains are developing so fast that they cannot understand themselves or stand themselves sometimes. So you have to be kind of cautious with them and patient with them. A book that I highly recommend that I got when I thought my daughter was losing her mind and I was going along with her, the Everything Tween book. It says, A Parent's Guide to Surviving the Turbulent Preteen Years, 9 to 12. This came from Scholastic. I highly recommend it. It's a very good tool when you're working with tweens.
All right, teenagers, when it comes to teens, I mean, obviously teens can be challenging. So the main thing to remember with teenagers is no forcing it, right? We can only have a level of success with this, with our teenagers, if we don't have to force them. So as parents, we can get excited and go, hey, there's this new cool thing, and we're thinking, oh, this is going to be really good for our relationship, and we get really excited, and then we bring it up to our teenager, and they're like, nah. Right? And then we're heartbroken, and we're bummed out, and we think, well, should I make them do it because it's going to make things better? So don't force them. We need a certain level of connection with them to begin with. And if you don't have that level of connection with your kid, if your kid's already in counseling, that is awesome. Maybe you might want to consider getting them into counseling. And by the way, even if you do, in most cases like that, where kids are really disconnected and maybe even really rebellious and really getting into trouble, in the majority of those cases, they're just going to have to get through it. I mean, I hate to, I know that freaks out parents, but the majority of the time when we see kids like that, there's not a certain medication that's going to fix it. They're getting to that age where they have to think this stuff through on their own, and the role of counseling becomes, can we build a relationship with them so that they have somebody to talk to, hopefully that they can tell to what they're struggling about, somebody who can have a good influence on them, and that sort of becomes mostly what it's about at that age. So if you've got the relationship with your teen, you can sit down to do this, just like with the last age group. Keep it light and just make it something like, hey, you know what? I was thinking about, me and your mom have done this recently, and I thought it'd be really cool if I could sort of find this out about you, and if you can maybe find it out about your mom, because then, you know, maybe we could connect a little bit better. You know, just make up something real light, you can say.
But be authentic with teenagers, because they will read through any fake statements that you made, and be willing to follow through. If you say, we're going to try this, and I would like to know how to show my love for you in a better way and have a better relationship with you, follow up, because they're going to be watching for it. They're going to be watching to see if mom and dad are following through, and they know, so follow through. So this is the questionnaire for them, and they might go, yeah, what was that sound you made when you said we're going to try this? You made a sound. No. Yeah, okay. So if they make that teenager sound, leave it in the room and walk away.
Let it go.
Okay, well, never mind.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many times they're going to fill that out and suddenly it's going to be on the kitchen counter and they did it, right? You didn't force it. You didn't make a scene. Don't embarrass them, because, you know, all you got to do is look at them and it's not okay. So be authentic, but just leave it laying out.
Be authentic, but what she's saying is be authentic, but not up to the point where you go, you know what, you've been a gigantic pain in my rear for a really long time.
Yeah, don't say that. Don't say that.
And I think this here survey might help.
There you go. All right, next. Okay, parents, I highly recommend that you find out your own love language first, because you are showing love from your primary love language. So there's two. There's one for parents that are in couples. There's one for parents that are singles. I brought them both. Do not dwell. Parents, adults are the worst at this. Oh, I don't know. Do I like this or do I like that? It's two choices, one or two. Apples or orange. Pick one and go on. Right? Don't dwell.
Don't
Just
get into
pick
your
it.
head about it. That's
Yeah.
true with every single psychological assessment or preference assessment you will ever take. Don't get in your head about it. Just plow through them.
Pick one and go, and then score it out. Next.
So is this me?
That's you.
This one's me.
That one's you.
All right. So, folks, it comes down to this. You know, for 25 years, I was in the ministry for 22 years. I've been doing full-time private practice for the last couple of years. And I've had this question posed to me a million times by young parents, parents with young children. What is the one thing that is most important that I need to do to make sure not to screw up my kid? My answer has always been the same. Get your own stuff together. Get your own stuff together, because compared to how good it will be for your child to have a secure, happy, healthy, whole, functional parent, whether you put them in timeout for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, come on, right? I mean, ultimately, that stuff isn't going to be all that important. What will make the biggest impact on our kids by far, and what is best in our marriage, our intimate, partner relationships, sorry, I said it again. The best in our partner relationships, right, would be for us to be whole and healthy human beings. And so if there's anything standing in the way of that for you, regardless, if you notice that you give your kid one of these surveys and your kid's primary love language is words of affirmation, and your parents never affirmed you when you were growing up, and it's never been a strong suit, and you keep finding that you really want to do it, but you just can't make yourself do it for some reason, you can't figure out why you're so uncomfortable, go and get help with that, right? That's not something that you have to allow to sort of disable you or to keep you from loving your child. So allow those, if there's something that you're struggling to implement, allow that to be a cue for you, and just go in and find out what's going on, and you can work through that.
And then you need to figure out your love language versus their love language. So I am acts of service. Dave tends to be quality time and words of affirmation. So I have to know that I do things for people. That's what I do. But I have a daughter that just wants to spend time with me. So I just need to stop doing and just be. And I have to be very conscious of that, because otherwise I miss the mark, right? So know yours, know theirs, and learn how to speak each other's love language, and become, I love what Dave says, he says, become a student of the people that you love. Learn the people that you love. Learn your kids. Aren't we always trying to figure out our kids? I have been studying my girls for 25 years now, and I'm getting better at it, but be a student of your kids. Learn everything you can about your kids, and they change and they grow and they develop, but their core need for love and that special love language that is theirs, that is their core, really does stay the same primarily for most of their life. So learn it, study it, become a student, and become a practitioner of it. Be the best mom you can be for that child that needs quality time. Figure out how to love Legos. If it's your little boy wants quality time and he's a Legos guy, learn about Legos. Figure out if it's trains, play with trains.
The other cool thing about this is it's free, mostly. Right? Doesn't matter what your education level is, your socioeconomic level, your background, what kind of parenting you had in your own life, or any, you can do this, and it will make your child's life better, and it'll make your life better too.
Yeah, and it is free. It's all about relationships. Parenting is not easy. Anybody want to tell me different? Because I don't think so. Parenting is not easy, and I don't believe it's done best alone. Even with your partner, it's not done best alone. When Dave and I were raising our children, we realized when we brought the first one home, there was no owner's manual. We didn't know. There were no instructions. It didn't tell us what to do. She couldn't communicate to us. There's no owner's manual. And so we were lost and trying to figure out what to do. We had loving parents, but we didn't know what to do as mom and dad. And we found ourselves finding people in life maybe 5 years ahead of us with their kids, or people that had been there and done that, and we watched them. How were, you know, that's a really nice family. What are they doing with their kids? We start watching and learning and soaking up every little bit of wisdom, gleaning every little bit of wisdom we could. I think that life is hard to do alone. Whether it's parenting, working, whatever it is, we're not created to live on an island. So find your people, find your tribe. Whether, you know, Dave and I were involved with the church, so it was our church people that we spent a lot of time with and learned with, and then we shared and helped them raise their kids, and that was what we did. If that's not your life, that's okay, but get involved in boosters, band boosters, athletic boosters, be part of the PTO, get to know the other parents at your child's school. That's a great thing, because then you know if your kid wants to go to somebody's house, you've already met the parents and you know if that's okay or not. It's a good thing to do. Plus, I love having lots of people at my PTO, and I know all the other principals do, so sign up and be a part of it. But then it also gives you a tribe, it gives you a team, because there is nothing like graduation day when your baby walks across the stage and you know all those kids going across that stage because you watched them grow up. You watched them play soccer for 13 years. You watched them on the bowling team. You watched them in the choir concerts, whatever it is. Find your tribe, find your people, and do parenting together. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to do it alone. It's not easy. So find some people to do it with. And then lastly, we're just glad you came. Thank you so much. We've been so excited. Dave and I love to talk, obviously. But we're really glad that you came. I want to congratulate you on being parents and grandparents that want to make an investment that makes a difference in the lives of their kids. We have a lot of hurting children in our schools. I love my job. It is the hardest thing I've ever done, but it is the most rewarding, because there's a lot of children that don't have amazing parents like you that need extra help and love and support. So I'm so grateful when I see parents and grandparents show up for something like this, whether it's because they have elementary children or high school children that are making them crazy, or elementary kids that are making them crazy. But you've taken the time out of your busy life to come and listen to this conversation and take some notes, and you're going to take this home and apply it. Your children cannot help but benefit from your time here tonight. So thank you. Thank you. As an educator, I thank you. Dave and I are going to be around if you want to ask us questions. On this table over here are all the surveys. Take as many as you want. If you have a spouse that didn't make it tonight and you want to take one for them, make them take the test. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, he's taking the test. Yeah, so have them do the survey. Take as many copies of the kids' surveys as you need for your family. There's different age groups. They're all very clearly labeled. And then the last sheet at the end is the one that I was referencing throughout, how to show how to connect with your children using the different love languages. All 5 areas are on here with applicable ways to show that love to a child. So make sure you get this one for sure. And then one thing, lastly on the table, on those index cards, Davison loves to offer parent nights, pep nights, and we want it to be meaningful. We want people to want to come, and we want them to feel like when they've come, they've benefited from that time spent. So if you have an idea, a topic that you would like presented in the future, if there's something that you think, oh, I'd love for Dave and Christy to talk about that, write it down. Dave and Christy, talk about this. We promise we don't always bring little stuffed cupcakes wherever we go. Or if there's another topic, if you want to hear about at these pep nights, please write it down and drop that card in the little green box on your way out. We are so glad you came. Have a great night, and we'll be over here if you want to talk to us. Don't forget the handouts. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.